Today, I want to dive into the muck of how the Biden administration turned the FBI and the Department of Homeland Security into political weapons, targeting, of course, their enemies, conservatives, for their beliefs, while allowing left-wing chaos to rip through and destroy cities around the nation. And unfortunately, none of this information will be available on the corporate DNC-sponsored news. This isn't just about policy. It's about something that I hold incredibly dear to my heart. It's called the First Amendment, which got trampled under the Biden administration, which of course is a consistent theme amongst the leftists that want to usurp control for themselves. And the First Amendment is a great impediment to them.
Our First Amendment stands as a major block to the ability to be able to just, hammer it out of existence. So what we need is to win the ground, win the right to govern by hopefully having, winning enough votes that you're free to be able to implement change.
They used law enforcement to be a twisted and partisan cudgel and a double standard so blatant, it's like they're begging us to notice, which is why I am bringing this to you. So let's break this down. It is thanks to the DNI, Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, that we have the receipts. Declassified documents from 2021 reveal that the Biden administration directed the FBI and DHS to monitor Americans for concerning non-criminal behavior. Concerning non-criminal behavior. Let me translate that for you. If you posted a Second Amendment meme, or waved a Gadsden flag, or dared to question the regime's narrative, you were flagged as a potential domestic extremist. No crime needed, just wrongthink. And you see how in England right now, and in other parts of Europe, they are jailing you for exactly such. Meanwhile, cities around our great nation burned, businesses crumbled, and left-wing groups like Antifa and BLM and their rioters got a hall pass. Why? Because what trumps decency, morality, and equality on the left is their desire for power. Let's paint the picture. On one side, you have conservatives. I'm talking about gun owners, veterans, parents at school board meetings being labeled as threats for exercising their free speech. A June 2021 memo greenlit federal agencies to snoop on anyone who was spreading disinformation or showing anti-government vibes. By the way, that is code for anyone who doesn't bow to the progressive agenda. The FBI opened 2,700, I repeat, 2,700 domestic extremism cases, more than double their usual load, chasing down patriots while ignoring the real havoc. Now, flip the script. In 2020, Antifa and BLM riots tore through places like Portland, Minneapolis, and Seattle, destroying businesses. They were torched, neighborhoods destroyed, billions of dollars in damages racked up. Did the Biden administration unleash the FBI on these folks? Did they investigate? Nope. FBI Director Chris Wray called Antifa an ideology, not an organization. As though that's an excuse to let these miscreants run wild. Meanwhile, conservatives got dossiers for posting memes, while leftists throwing Molotovs were barely a blip on the radar. A 2021 report from the Movement for Black Lives even whined that BLM protesters faced heavy-handed prosecutions. Oh my God, no! But only for actual crimes like arson or assault, not their beliefs. And by the way, people in New York, lawyers that threw Molotov cocktails into police vehicles got 1 year in jail. Juxtapose that against January 6th protesters, or even tourists that walked into the Capitol and got years in the penitentiary before being pardoned. This is the hypocrisy that burns down nations. The Biden crew claimed their domestic terrorism strategy was agnostic to ideology, but the numbers do not lie. Right-wing groups were blamed for most attacks since 1994. Biden came out and said that the MAGA extremists were the greatest threat that our country faced, while the left wing burned everything down, with the FBI's own data showing that 80% of their counterterrorism resources went after Islamic threats, not left-wing anarchists. And when did they pivot to domestic extremism? It was laser focused on conservatives, veterans, pro-lifers, even Christians, while Antifa's direct action campaigns got maybe a shrug, if that. So you have to ask yourself, why was there such a double standard? Very simply, it's politics. The left needed conservatives painted as the boogeyman to justify their further power grab. Wall Street, big tech, and the feds made a deal after the 2020s chaos, embrace the progressive narrative, silence dissent, and keep the machine humming. Label Moms for Liberty as domestic terrorists for caring about their kids' education and not wanting them to be taught CRT in schools, but let Antifa skate as they burn down businesses. It's a playbook designed to crush free speech, and using your black-clad brown shirts, the Antifa, as enforcement. This is where the First Amendment gets gutted. Free speech isn't just about saying what you want. It's about not being punished for it. That is the definition. That is why we have the First Amendment. When the FBI flags you for a Gadsden flag or a Pro-2A post, that is a direct violation of your right to express your views. If that's not weaponization, what is? The feds colluded with groups like the ADL and GLAAD to brand conservatives' accounts, like, for example, Libs of TikTok, as extremist. This, of course, chills speech because you fear the investigation. It's not only about who you immediately label, but who else you silence because of an implied threat. Here is the kicker. While cities like Minneapolis lost $500 million plus in damages, the FBI was busy chasing the phantom ghost of white supremacists who didn't exist in a tenth of the numbers that they claimed. The Biden admin's own reports admitted left-wing violence spiked in 2020, tied to opposition to far-right ideologies and perceived police bias that, by the way, they inculcated in the masses via the coverage of the corporate media, which they control with the dollars that are there to police how they discuss events. Yet, instead of cracking down, they let it slide. Maybe because it served not only their narrative, but their continued hold on the reins of power, which is what they truly want. Small businesses owned by hardworking Americans, they were looted, burned, and abandoned. Where was the DOJ then? Where? They were letting their allies run amok and inspire fear in anyone who might shout out against critical race theory being taught to their elementary school children. This isn't just unfair, it is a betrayal. The same feds who ignored Antifa's direct action in Portland, where they were attempting to burn down the federal courthouse there for months straight, they were quick to slap cuffs on pro-lifers praying outside abortion clinics, or meme makers like Douglas Mackey for election interference when nobody's vote was interfered with. It's a two-tiered system, one for the left, who get to protest with firebombs, and one for conservatives who get SWAT teams for tweeting. The Heritage Foundation nailed it. This was about tarring progressive opponents as dangerous in an effort to silence them. Here's the ugly truth. The Biden administration didn't just target conservatives. They tried to criminalize dissent. They used domestic extremism as a catch-all to smear anyone who didn't kneel before their agenda. But the First Amendment isn't a suggestion. It's a bedrock of a free society. When law enforcement becomes a political hit squad, we are incredibly close to tyranny. And while leftists burn down businesses to the ground, the feds looked the other way because chaos actually served their story, especially if you could get the right-wingers to fight back, as they did just in the slightest on January 6th, and you see what happened to those people. But there is a light, I hope, at the end of the tunnel. We have the ability to fight back, not with violence, let me be clear to the future Democrat administrations, but with truth, that which you find to be utterly toxic, Dems. We can call out the hypocrisy. We can demand accountability. We can support leaders like Tulsi Gabbard, who exposed this nonsense. The American spirit isn't about burning cities or silencing speech. It's about building, debating, and standing tall. So, clean your room, as Jordan Peterson would say. Take care of yourself and your family, and stand tall with your shoulders back, and resolutely stand in the way against the attempted authoritarian takeover of our beloved and free America. Take responsibility for your voice. Speak up, vote, and don't let the Democrats, the feds, scare you into silence. The First Amendment is our God-given and constitutional right, and I will do everything I can to help maintain its integrity and your right to exercise your voice as you see fit. God bless everybody. I hope you join me in this quest.